While copper reached record levels and then fell again, the world's largest copper buyer, China's State Grid Corporation, has reduced its purchases of copper wire this year and increased those of aluminum wire, a more economical substitute. Although it seems like a reaction to rising copper prices, some analysts believe it could be an indication of something much bigger, a policy shift that could shake the global metals market. Imagine this: the substitution of copper with aluminum in Chinese power grids could have a massive impact on global demand. Let's analyze this situation a bit. Let's begin. China consumes more than a quarter of the world's copper, mainly for electrical cables. However, industry operators and executives are not sure if there is a significant push towards copper substitution. This topic tends to resurface whenever the prices of this material rise. Chenfei Wang, from CRU Group in Shanghai, states that the idea of substituting copper with aluminum is not new in China and that there has been little significant progress. And that the substitution of high-priced copper usually attracts more attention when prices increase. In fact, since the times of Thomas Edison, copper has been the preferred metal for conducting electricity, but aluminum, although less conductive, is lighter and cheaper. However, aluminum must be larger to transmit the same amount of electricity as copper, and it has a reputation for being less safe, a perception that was cemented in the 70s when the use of aluminum in domestic wiring caused electrical fires. Aluminum is already used in high-voltage overhead power lines in China due to its light weight. However, China still uses approximately 7.5 million tons of copper per year in electrical cables, compared to 3 million tons of aluminum. Globally, copper substitution has reduced its consumption by about 1 to 1.5% annually over the last decade. Although the global copper market is currently well supplied, the industry is expected to face large deficits in the coming years, which could drastically increase prices. In China, the use of copper is mandatory for certain types of wiring and power generation, so any policy change is closely watched. But State Grid, which supplies electricity to more than 80% of China, doesn't always disclose whether it buys aluminum or copper cables, making it difficult to track its purchasing decisions. Analysts and executives point out that State Grid has reduced its purchases of copper and metal cables in recent months. Using as a source the copper cable sales of one of its main suppliers, which fell around 20% in the second quarter. State Grid's tenders for insulated metal cables slowed down since April due to high copper prices, although some activity resumed when prices decreased. In contrast, aluminum cable sales increased significantly, with tenders rising 40% to 718,000 tons in the first 4 months of the year. Gu Honglin, president of the China Non-Ferrous Metals Industry Association, stated that it's a good time to promote the substitution of copper with aluminum, due to the country's abundant aluminum resources, high dependence on copper imports, and aluminum's competitiveness. A State Grid supplier has increased its aluminum purchases by nearly 50% in the last 2 months. However, some warn that this increase in demand for aluminum cables seems to be intended for temporary installations rather than the power grid. State Grid has not commented on its purchasing decisions. On the other hand, Prysmian Spa, the world's leading cable manufacturer, doubts that there will be a significant shift towards aluminum unless there is a real copper shortage. Their customers in rapidly growing areas prefer copper for its efficiency and reliability. Meanwhile, Max Layton, a Citigroup analyst, points out that aluminum substitution has already reduced copper demand by 400,000 tons. Citigroup analysts believe that the probability of a policy change is increasing and that a large-scale substitution with aluminum could limit the rise in copper prices. Even as we write the script for this video, the third consecutive day of falling copper prices is reported amid market speculations about demand from the Asian country. But if China were planning a large-scale substitution in its copper wiring for aluminum, the fall in copper prices would not be the only repercussion on a global scale. China devours a quarter of the copper exported by producing countries, so a move like this would bring enormous drops in the income of these countries, while aluminum producers would see the need to increase their production, with all that entails, such as the enormous environmental impact fostered by a growing exploitation of the resources necessary to manufacture the new aluminum wiring needed. And finally, we have the risks to citizen safety, because although it's possible that China has developed a good transition plan using aluminum only in installations where its conductive characteristics do not represent a risk but even a benefit, it is highly likely that other institutions and nations, by imitation and in an effort to reduce costs, will implement this material poorly, with the consequences already seen during the 70s. What do you think about it? Is it just a movement resulting from the rise in copper prices, or is China's electric industry giant planning a much larger move that could put the global metals market in check? If you liked or found the video useful, give it a like or subscribe if you prefer. We upload videos weekly. Until next time.